My eyes went like, what? How many people are paying for porn with ACH? I don't even believe this. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Uncensored Direct Marketing. Today, I have Areeba Ahmed. I am very excited to have Areeba because she is a fantastic marketer. In addition to being a fantastic marketer and an up-and-coming talent in our industry, she's actually a doctor. So studying to be a doctor or just finishing being getting her degree to be a doctor. So, I mean, if anybody can crush it more than her, please let me know, because I don't know anybody that at her age is being able to just succeed in so many levels of life. And also, Areeba is from Pakistan. So everybody who says, they have some barriers, I'm sure that Areeba has had quite a few barriers being from Pakistan and trying to break into the US markets and so forth. So I am very excited to talk with Areeba today about her business and some challenges that she's having with conversions and how to really increase basically the take rate on her checkout page. So Areeba, thank you so much. And I hope my intro did you justice, but I cannot even imagine all the stuff that you do in a day and all the goals you've accomplished. I'm sure your parents are super proud. So can you tell us a little bit about your business and a little bit about what is keeping you busy these days?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction, Maria. So basically, I do have a couple of different businesses. First is just, email list management that I'm doing for 7, 8, and 9-figure health and, health and supplement companies. Besides that, I do have a couple of digital product offers with my business partner, Akib. And we run different digital products, mainly buying media on like Facebook, Instagram. And then we also have an e-commerce business that we are just launching in the emerging markets. And by that, we mean, different like Pakistani market, different like small like European countries, the markets that are basically just emerging in the e-commerce space. So naturally, if you are, working with those markets, you get a lot of different, payment issues. If you have a payment processor that's based in the US, they might not like recognize that particular card, and they give you just, different decline reasons. So that is, an issue that we are like running into. And yeah, that's what let me do message you when we're here.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, we get a lot of questions. Myself personally, I get just like a ton of questions from different people in the situation where they're outside of the US and they're selling to the US, or they're selling to different markets, and they're just getting a whole bunch of declines, which to me is a shame, right? Because you have people who are willing to buy, because there's one part of the equation here is getting somebody to want to buy, but then when they want to buy and they can't for an unrelated issue, then let's say they have no money, there's nothing you can do. Obviously, if somebody has no funds, even then there are some things that you can do there, but not being able to convert a sale because, for example, somebody's in a country that doesn't convert well with your merchant account or your payment processor, it's really crappy. I mean, there's no better way to say it. It's like, well, I made all this effort to buy this traffic, to pay for this, to get somebody to go on my cart, and now they're issuing bank decline, which is a common one, right? So, I'm happy that we're gonna talk about this, because I think there's a lot of things that you can do in your cart, and even if somebody's American and has a U.S. merchant account, or they're foreign, it's all the same. I mean, obviously, people who have a U.S. merchant account and they're American and their business is based really with American traffic, they have less of these issues. But because of the economy being where it is now, a lot of people are having issues with approval ratios on their checkout. So it's just costing marketers a lot more money to get the same amount of sales. And a lot of times it's due to checkout page issues, like meaning people can't convert at the credit card payment processor level. So it's a big issue, and we're going to try to unwrap a lot of it and try to get it done. So tell me a little bit about, like how did you start the business? What brought you into this industry? Because I'm always curious to hear people's like origin stories, like what clicked in order for you to get into direct response?
Yeah, for sure. I think it goes way back now. I think, I don't know how long has it been. It has been like 3 years, 4 years. It has been long, but I like basically started off as like in the content, like writing space, just, doing stuff like that. And then I dove into copywriting, which is basically just a challenge with friends as a challenge. And I started doing it and I liked it. And then, at that particular time, pandemic happened. And then we discovered Step In and Justin. And we had those incredible mastermind programs where I met you and a bunch of different other really good marketers. And that's where I would say everything started. And the way I have been, I always, wanted to just start things of my own. And from there, I think we have a couple of different people come into play, like Alan and his Nothing Held Back mastermind and the Fast Forward mastermind. And just joining that and getting different offer ideas is what clicked for me. And I would say I'm really good with the marketing, the strategy and stuff like that. What I'm not good with is the tech side. And that's where, my other business partner, Akib, comes into play. So, and we met in the Fast Forward mastermind. So I think that's where everything started.
That's awesome. So just to give everybody some context listening, Justin Goff and Stefan Georgi, who also actually were on my podcast, we'll link the episodes down below. They had a mastermind called Copy Accelerator. It was really big during the pandemic and a lot of people were on there. And I know for myself, I was in there because I guess, during the pandemic, everybody was kind of just looking for stuff and make connections with people and stuff like that. And I was in there I couldn't travel anymore. Obviously I was stuck. I'm Canadian. I was stuck in Canada. We were prisoners. And there was nothing really going on. So I said, okay, well, I'll take my budget and join this mastermind because it seems interesting. And it's nice how many people made connections through online things. And I made a lot of connection. I made a lot of friends. I made a lot of people that I've worked with, that I've hired, and is what a wonderful group that was. And now I think, one big group I find that a lot of people in the industry are after is Alan Sultanic's Fast Forward group, Nothing Held Back. And actually I did interview Alan as well, and we'll link his episode down below as well. But yeah, these are powerhouses in marketing. And I think that a lot of people who are entering this type of space, they can learn a lot just from being in the groups, not necessarily even listening to calls and so forth. I get a lot of knowledge in the Nothing Held Back group on marketing techniques, what people do, because people ask questions and then a whole bunch of extremely smart people answer. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I should do this,
Yeah.
So you're in the right place. I'm just curious. Obviously you're in Pakistan and you're working a lot with Americans and so forth. Did you have any challenges, getting work in the States or proving yourself or kind of, obviously if you're not American, I feel it's a little bit harder for you to kind of break through. So I'm just curious to know your experience and how you actually broke through the American market.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There are definitely, a lot of challenges because first you're not a native English speaker. And there are a lot of little nuances in a language that you need to know, and especially you're writing direct response copy, or you're running, traffic, running offers on cold traffic. So I would say the way I came over it was just by I think reading a lot of different offers, just being more observant. And I would say joining different masterminds definitely helps a lot. When you are around people who are constantly leveling up, it does help you massively. Instead of, just lurking in free groups, which does not mean that free groups do not provide values. They do provide values, but being around a certain group of people, who have paid a certain amount to be in a particular setting, I feel that is more impactful, and that is where I have learned the most.
Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, if somebody's paying $10,000-$20,000 to be in a mastermind, obviously they're not there to waste their time. People want to be somewhere. I think at one point Copy Accelerator was $30,000 or something a year. So if people are dishing out $30K to be in a mastermind, I'm fairly certain they're getting value. I did get value. So, I think it's very important. And like you said, free groups are good. I think, a lot of times, the one thing that frustrates me, I hear it from a lot of non-Americans mostly. They're like, oh, well, I don't have any money or I don't have any means to get in. And, I see people like you that fucking destroy it. Literally, you just get in there and you just get people out of the way and you get what you need and do all that. So I feel like there is obviously more challenges, but we are so lucky, as cheesy as this sounds, like you can learn anything. Like you just literally go on YouTube and you type in whatever you want. Like, people ask me a lot of questions, even on payments. I'm like, I do some consulting on a case by case basis. Depending on certain merchants, they have to be at a certain level in order to benefit from my consulting. But I always tell merchants, everything that you're going to pay me for is on my YouTube channel. If you have the patience to listen to it and I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to, but if you have no money, my mom always says, if you have no money, you have time.
Yeah.
There you go. So, like I feel like, if you're not a native English speaker, or if you're not from the US and you want to break into the US market, you just have to do exactly what you did, which is, get into the right groups, read as much information free as possible, and just practice. I mean, you're obviously very intelligent, so I'm sure not everybody can do that, but it's there for anybody who wants it. It's not, everybody has challenges. I would say us, when I say us, meaning Americans, Canadians, British, I think we have it easier than everybody else. I know I have a lot of friends that are not American, not Canadian, so forth. And, there's a lot more challenges, but it just makes you stronger, I think, when you actually succeed and you're not there, because it makes you unstoppable. You can find solutions to anything. So anyway, that's a really interesting origin story and so forth. But I do want to make sure that I get answers to all your questions and we look at everything about your offer. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the offer, just so we kind of position it, like what you're doing and so forth. First of all, in terms of the product itself and like the pricing strategy, like how are you pricing? What are, like, give me a few ideas of like what kind of packages you have and so forth.
For sure. So all the offers that we have they're either in the biz op space or in the education space, and they're all like low ticket. So on the front end, like we start with like $3.99, or we would start with like $4 or $7, $30, just depending on whatever the offer is, and then we have like a bump and an add-on. And then on the upsells, we have like the regular pricing of like $97 or like $47 downsell and stuff like that. So these are all like fairly low ticket offers. Okay.
So everything's digital then?
Everything is digital.
Okay. Yeah. You're never mailing anything. Okay. And in terms of you have a front end offer, how many upsells do you have?
We have around, I would say, 2 upsells. Yeah.
Okay. 2 upsells.
We have 2 upsells.
Okay. And they're all your products. Like you're not upselling to any other. Okay.
No, they're all our products.
And right now, in terms of billing practices, are you just charging the front end and then each transaction separately? Or are you doing like a cart where you're charging the full thing at the end?
I think so. We are utilizing Stripe. And the way I see things coming into Stripe is they try to charge everything together.
Okay. Which is not ideal in this type of scenario, depending on what the ticket size is. Okay. So that's interesting. There are ways to change that in Stripe. I would caution you, like I caution every merchant, when you make changes in Stripe on the settings or the config, it could be problematic. So you have to kind of strategically do it. Like, for example, open another Stripe account to test it, see if that works. And then you can kind of relay it on your main account, because Stripe is very temperamental with merchants, especially non-US merchants.
Yeah.
So you don't want to ruffle any feathers or cause any issues. And they have algorithms. And if you do something and you trip up an algorithm, you can get like a suspension, or you can get like your account frozen until things happen. So there is a way to actually charge in Stripe one transaction at a time. And that would likely yield better results for you, depending on the ticket size. So if somebody buys the front end and all the upsells, what is the final price there?
The final price can go up to like 90. Again, it depends on the offers. For one of the offers, it can go up to like $97. For another offer, it can go up to like $197.
Okay. Sub 100. would be less of a problem than the over 100. $100 in terms of a transaction amount is actually seen differently on a banking level, meaning on a risk perspective, a customer's bank, and I'm talking mainly, US customers and so forth. Obviously, in other countries, depending on their income levels, GDPs and so forth, it's a bit different. But like we're talking like first world Western countries, at about $100 is where banks will let things slide a little bit more. And above 100, that's when you're starting to get into more risk, like their risk of banks are risk averse. I mean, we all know this, right? So if they feel that this is coming from a merchant that they don't trust, and I'll talk a little bit about what makes you trustworthy and not trustworthy as a merchant, but anytime you're tagged as a foreign transaction, you're always running into a risk of not Stripe, but the customer's bank declining. So there's a couple of things there that we can look at. But I'm curious in terms of your declines and what you're seeing. Like, have you looked into the common messages of like what's coming up? Like, you're getting a decline transaction, but do you know why it's declining?
Sure thing. So basically, if I go to like decline reason, most common are like stuff like do not honor, right?
Okay.
And if we click on apply, we have like 308 results there.
Wow.
Like 308 pages.
308 pages. Wow, that's insane. That is over how much time? Like, is this for the year? Is this for the month?
No, this is for, I would say we started this account in like August. So like I would say past 6 months. Yeah.
If we go kind of back into the data, how many approved transactions versus decline? Like, what is your approval ratio right now in total, not just for do not honors?
Yeah. So in total, we have like total transactions were 7,154. Okay. Out of that, 4,186 were approved and 2,516 failed. Okay.
I'm looking down because I'm going to take my calculator and we're going to just calculate. I can't do it off by heart here. 2516 divided by 7154. Wow. Okay. So guys, this is 35% of transactions are getting declined. Yeah. So Areeba, you're doing a great job getting the people to want to buy your product, but unfortunately 35% of them cannot, which is nuts. I mean, do you know how many of the 2516 are do not honors?
That's a good question. I do not, but I can get back to you on that. Okay. However, I separated the transactions based on like, all of the rest of the codes and then the insufficient code funds thing. Okay. And then the rest of the codes were like $21,000 and then and that is like just for like I think the past like 4-month period. Okay. And then the insufficient funds was like I think $10,000 or like $5,000. So rest of the codes were actually higher.
Okay. So I do want to point out, like on Stripe and any processor that you're using, all processors give you this information because I get a lot of questions and people say, oh, I don't know, they're just declined. No, there are reasons for the declines and it's important to know the reasons because then you can attack each one and try to fix all the different things. So I think the easiest thing would be to go with the easiest ones, the ones that we can actually quickly put a few things in place. The do not honor, I'll leave it a little bit towards the end because that's a huge one. It's like a present, like one of those Russian dolls that you just unravel and you get like a whole bunch of different things that it can be. So, so there's, if can we expand this to make it so we can see all the decline reasons that you're getting?
I think this is the biggest expansion that Stripe allows. Okay. So but it's usually do not honor or it's like transaction not allowed.
That means the exact same thing.
Same thing?
Yes. It's just sometimes banks call it different things internally, but do not honor, generic decline. And if we go a little bit lower, oh man, there's a lot here. Okay. Service not allowed, transaction not allowed. Those all kind of mean the same thing. What it means is the customer's bank saying no. That's as general as it can get in the sense of like, there's a various amount of reasons. It could be that it falls outside of the customer's purchasing habits, meaning they usually don't buy digital products. And how they know it's a digital product is because in your settings in Stripe, you've told Stripe what kind of business you are.
Yeah.
And they will go back and tell the customer's bank, this is a digital product, or this is a high risk product, whatever it is. And then what happens there is that they're like, oh, this customer's never bought anything like this. No, thank you. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
It could also be, for example, are you accepting transactions from outside of the US? Do you know like the split between US and non-US?
The most of our transactions are actually like third world countries.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do get a lot of traffic from there.
Do you know the split approximately, like percentage wise?
I do not know the approximate split, but yeah, I would say like almost 30 to 40% are definitely third world countries.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a big.
What are your biggest markets outside of the US? Like what are your biggest
outside of the US, we have the usual Canada, we have UK, and then we have Pakistan, India, Bangladesh.
Okay. And I see here one thing that I see that's interesting. It all says US dollars. Do you charge everybody in US dollars?
Yes, everyone gets charged in US dollars.
Okay. So one thing that's going to be an easy fix in the sense of like something that you can do that could increase your conversions probably overnight by a couple of percent is charge in the native currency. And it's just a flag in Stripe. It's called dynamic currency conversion, DCC it's called. And what that does is that it converts whatever amount that you've put in US dollars into, let's say, Canadian dollars or into GBPs or in India, their currency and so forth. And it charges them in their native currency. But what it does is that you get it in US dollars. So unfortunately, you kind of suffer a little bit from the FX because they'll charge like 1% for the FX on you, like it's the merchant cost. But what that's going to do is when the customer's bank is balancing risk, one thing they don't like is foreign currency. Yeah. Because foreign currency, let's say I buy something from you that's $21.79, like I see that price point on there, US dollars. I'm Canadian. So that $21.79 is going to be $30 for me. I may, because there's just a lot of confusion and like you see dollar sign can mean Canadian dollar, Australian dollar, US dollar, can mean a lot of things. Banks are like, ugh, now because of people complaining, chargeback rates really going up, disputes going up. They're like, no, we want you to charge local currency. They won't tell you that, but they'll say, we're not accepting anybody that's not charging in Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
Or we're not accepting. So right away, you can add DCC onto your card. Like I said, it sucks for you. You're going to get an extra fee there from the FX, but you'll be charging the customer the native currency. You'll still be getting, $21.79 equivalent minus an extra fee. And you'll be seeing a higher success rate. Also, when a customer disputes a transaction or wants a refund, if they're subject to FX, like if you're charging them in US dollars, the FX rate changes. So you may refund them $21.79 US, but they were charged, let's say $30 Canadian. But then because of the FX, they only get 27 back. You'll get them to complain again because they're like, where's my $3?
Yeah.
And so there's no way to control that because FX changes, foreign exchange. So charging in the native currency will really help solve a lot of those problems, and it will increase conversions and likely decrease chargebacks and disputes. So it's a win.
It's a win. It's an easy fix. I did not know about that. So this is something we can do. We'll do right now.
Yeah, you can just go into your settings. You're going to do this later, but you go into your settings and you turn that on. And then, it's not going to change much for you. In the sense of like, you'll lose that 1% FX fee, which sucks, but you will gain a couple of percentage, especially in the bigger markets, like in the GBPs, in the Canada and the Australias, you're going to gain some market share there.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important. So that's interesting. Now, we were talking about your merchant the category of your business. And earlier, when you were setting up your Stripe account, did you know about that? Did you know to choose a category specific? Did you look through, or you just kind of just picked something and moved on?
We just pick something and move on, whatever was relevant.
Okay. Do you know what that code is? So the reason that I'm asking is because you could be a lot of codes. You could be a lot of different codes. And the code that you choose, and I know a lot of people who are on Stripe, they just go through that sign up process really quick, just choose anything and then they move on. And inadvertently, what they might have done, or what you do by mistake, is that you choose a high risk category when you could also fit in a low risk category, and that actually really improves your conversions. Now, I will caution you this: do not change your merchant category code while you are processing. You would need to create a new Stripe account and go there. I'll tell you what, a processor hates changing an MCC code. They call it MCC, merchant category code, in the midst of an active account. It causes a lot of problems with Visa, especially if there's recurring transactions, because you can't have a merchant that says, hey, it's $21.79 for a digital product, and then next month, it's $21.79, but now we're this type of product. It causes a lot of red flags. So if you go back to your merchant category code, if you're listening and you're like, hey, that merchant category code, that's not me. I just randomly chose something that doesn't even actually make sense, and you want to change it, my suggestion is you get a Stripe account, another one, slowly build it up, and then slowly transition your volume over to the new one. Or if you're big enough and you're thinking merchant account is your way to go, then open a merchant account with the correct merchant category code, but never change an MCC code randomly to test it.
Yeah, that's a good point. We actually chose software. So we are like a software, even though we are not selling anything remotely close to a software.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, the problem with that is if you are if they feel like you're misrepresenting your business, they can have a problem with it, meaning they're going to say, this would only happen if you ever had a Stripe review, a risk review. For example, if your chargebacks went a little bit high, or you scaled really quickly, or your average ticket went through the roof in comparison. Those are the main things that would cause a Stripe review, like a risk one. And if they did a risk review and they're like, this is not software, the risk for your business is they may think that you tried to do that on purpose, and you might get an account closure because they're going to say, well, your business does not match a merchant category code and you lied to us. So that's not in your terms and conditions. You are not allowed to lie to Stripe. And if you do, they are allowed to terminate you. So that's why it's really important when you're setting up your Stripe account to really pick the right category. What I usually recommend is you can Google merchant category codes, payment processing, and get a list of all the merchant category codes, and they're 4-digit numbers. So look through the ones that could be applicable to you and pick the best one. Obviously, if you're not in payment processing, you won't know what's the best one, but I will say anything between 5960 and 5969 is considered high risk. Again, you have to look it up to tell. I'm not going to go through each one, but anything in those ones is considered high risk, and there's some other ones peppered in there that you have to look at. But you want to try to get ones that are not, there are a lot of good merchants that are in those categories. I have to place merchants sometimes in those categories depending on how they market, but those are considered high risk. So if you, for example, are a high risk merchant and you try to represent yourself as a low risk merchant, Stripe might see that as you're trying to game the system. So that's why you have to be careful. So that's why I'm saying, if ever you want to change your merchant category code, or you want to test something, always on a new account. You don't want to do it on anything that you're working on right now. So software is an interesting
choice.
Interesting, but I mean, look, it's not completely oblivious. You are selling a digital product. It's not like you told them you're selling socks and now you're selling something else. You know what I mean? So that's not like completely off, but that could be, is there a number that's associated next to it?
No, it just said software.
Okay, interesting. Because there's a couple of categories for software, and I was curious. Visa categorizes everybody in 4 digits, so there's different software stuff. So I find it odd that Stripe did not give you that category specifically. But if we can flip back now, this was a nice little parentheses there, but flip back onto the decline messages there. Let's look at again the listing of the declines. Sure. Okay, so I see expired card. Okay, so can I assume that the expired cards are for recurring transactions?
They are for recurring transactions, but sometimes they're just like for the main thing as well, like for the main front end.
So on your checkout page, you allow people to put an expired card?
I don't think so. We have a filter to ask them not to do it.
Okay. So payment processing works with an algorithm. So there's a couple of things that are very important for people to be doing on their checkout page, like not sending obviously bad transactions, bad meaning transactions that we know are going to decline to their payment processor. Because the more bad transactions that you send, when I say bad, I mean things that are obviously not going to get approved, then the more likely it is that you're going to ruin that algorithm of your approvals, right? Because obviously, you're a small merchant, but over time, there's like almost like a range that is set for you. Like, oh, she usually gets like 70% approval. Or if a particular bank sees a lot of transactions coming from you, let's say you're geo-targeting Chicago for your ads or whatever, and you're getting a lot of like clients in clusters that may be banking at the same place. The customer's bank sees transactions coming in from you. And if they feel like you're sending them bad transactions, like transactions that are declining mainly, they might put you on a restricted list. So sometimes these big banks like Bank of America, not the whole Bank of America, but like Bank of America, Chicago, this location, they have algorithms to see, merchant IDs and approvals and chargeback rates per merchant. And if they see that you're sending them a lot of transactions, like, hey, this card's expired, why is this merchant even sending us this? That there's no need for you to send that. So there should be an automatic, on your checkout page, like if somebody doesn't put the current month, it's just, you shouldn't even let them proceed. There's no reason for it, right? It's going to be declined. Now, on the subscription side of things, there's something called Visa Account Updater and MasterCard Account Updater. Have you heard of that feature?
Nope.
Okay. So there is a feature in Stripe and with pretty much every processor in the US, and most international processors are offering this as well. It's called Visa Account Updater and MasterCard Account Updater. Two separate services, one obviously offered by Visa, one offered by MasterCard. You turn these on. It's not automatically turned on because there's a fee for this, but I guarantee you there's not any merchant that I've ever turned it on for that said, I've lost money with this, like never.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer. You turn it on, and what it does is that at the end of the month, it sees all the cards that are expiring. It takes those cards and it goes back to the issuer, the customer's bank, and says, hey, this is an active subscription that we have. We see the cards expiring. Can you please give us the new card details? Obviously in code. They're not actually calling or anything, but they're sending this file. And then the customer's bank says, oh, yes, a new card has been issued. Here's the new number, or here's the new expiry date, and everything else remains the same. And then that gets automatically updated and your subscription just keeps going. It literally adds 3 to 5% extra in your subscription, like overnight.
That's
huge.
That is huge.
Yes. So you can turn that on in Stripe. You go into your settings, Visa Account Updater, MasterCard Account Updater. I don't know what the fees are involved. I know with your merchant account, it would be a lot cheaper. Like a merchant account would be, probably around 50 cents or less per record. And it's only per record that's updated. So if you think about it, even if you pay $1 or $2, for example, for this to be updated, I mean, you're getting a sale from it, right? So no brainer, right?
It offsets the cost.
Yeah. So that's another one that we should do. And are you hosting your own checkout page?
We are, yes. We are almost usually on Go High Level.
Okay.
Or the WordPress,
Another thing that you can do, like we want to try to avoid sending transactions, as I said earlier, that are not good transactions or like bad transactions. So we want to avoid sending expired cards. That's number one. That's easy. You can just, block it if the calendar is not current. Number two, there's something called the Loon algorithm, which is LUHN algorithm. And that's how credit card numbers are built.
Yeah.
So there's like an algorithm that kind of sets us. I mean, you're probably a mathematician as well, so you know what that is. But for all us people that are not mathematicians, but what the Loon algorithm is essentially something that spits out different combinations of numbers, and that's how credit card numbers are created. That's why there's no credit card number that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. It doesn't work like that. They're all like this random algorithm. And what you can do on your checkout page very simply is to have the card number run against the Loon algorithm. And if it doesn't match, then you just don't process the order because it's not going to be approved anyway, right? And a lot of processors charge for failed or declined transactions. Most do. Even with Stripe, you get charged 30 cents every single time, even if it's declined. So, and with your own merchant account, you don't get charged a percentage like the 2.9 or whatever you're paying, but you do pay a transaction fee. So if you have somebody try 15 times with the card, you're paying for a transaction that makes absolutely no sense for you to be paying for, right? Because the card number is incorrect. So that's another thing that we can do. That's like, if you have your own checkout page, it's just a couple of little lines of code. It's really not a big deal, and you'll save yourself a little bit of time there. And what our goal is with every time we look at decline transactions and so forth, is try to minimize the decline transactions, because that will get your approval rate higher, and then you'll get higher and higher and higher because the algorithm is going to say, oh, Areeba and her business are sending us better transactions. We should, be pushing some of these through and so forth. So now incorrect. There you go. You see where it says incorrect number?
Yep, incorrect number.
Yes, that's an incorrect credit card number. That's just Loon algorithm right there. So now I think the easiest thing or what everybody has on their mind is the do not honor
code. Yeah.
And you have quite a few incorrect card numbers.
Incorrect
here,
numbers,
right?
Like people are trying.
Yeah, people are trying, and you see somebody's trying like 6 or 7 times. This guy's just lost you money, right? Like, there's no need for you to even, continue this, right?
Continue that.
And where I see subscription update in there, you see incorrect number subscription update. That would be fixed by VAU MAU, because this is somebody who's already bought and then maybe changed their card because they were frauded or whatever the case is. So Visa account updater would go back and get the new number and get it on. Obviously, unless they've declared that your transaction is fraud, then no. But other than that, it would work. So the do not honor, generic declines, and then we said there was another one there, transaction not allowed. That is all kind of the same thing, right? You would also see issuing bank decline. Just the word decline, that just means the customer's bank is saying no. Now, there's various reasons they can say no. Number one, like I said, foreign transaction and not having the correct currency causes more disputes. So banks are now extremely sensitive to avoiding disputes because they don't want to have to handle them. Handling chargebacks is very manual. Somebody has to answer the phone, type all this complaint stuff up, then send it to the processor, and the processor has to review it. Somebody else has to kind of call back and find out and send papers to the merchant or file a dispute. It's a very annoying process. That's why a chargeback costs so much money, and that's why you lose so much money. And even then, banks, processors, are all saying that it doesn't even cover the cost at this point. It's just too much paperwork. So they want to just avoid it at all costs, right? So there's a couple of things that you want to do here is you want to inform, if possible, to your customer that their bank has said no. So there's one thing that happens there is that some customers, when they really want to buy something, they will call their bank or contact their bank and advise them that, hey, I tried to buy this and I wasn't allowed, and then they'll come back and buy it. So there's that's kind of like the easiest thing to do, is just to say to the customer, whenever you get these decline messages, the pop-up should be, your bank has not allowed this transaction. Obviously you're a marketer, you can say it a bit better, but just to tell them basically that your bank, it seems like you have funds, but your bank's not allowing this for some reason. So call them. If the customer calls and says, hey, I want this, they'll let it go through. That their algorithms will go through. Now, another thing that I see with the do not honors and the transaction not allowed is for your transactions that are outside of the US specifically, specifically European, UK transactions, there is something called 3DS that is mandatory for European and UK transactions. Have you heard of 3DS?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So 3DS is like 2FA for credit card transactions. Now, if you have not enabled 3DS for your European transactions in Stripe, they will get declined. And you will get these messages: do not honor, transaction not allowed, just simple decline. So do you know if you have 3DS activated for your European transactions?
I don't think so. No, we don't have that.
Okay. So it would be important. So you would have two options. My preferred option would be to have another Stripe account for European sales and activate 3DS on that and let it run on its own, and then have this Stripe account work on everything other than Europe. Stripe says that you could turn it on per region. I'm not confident it works that well when you turn it on regionally. But again, it's a matter of testing. You can these are settings and features you can turn on and off. Like, it's not going to be super problematic with Stripe if you turn on 3DS and then turn it off. But make sure when you do turn it on that you do not turn it on for US transactions, because then you'll get a whole bunch of problems there, and your conversions are going to take a nosedive, right? So I'm curious. I'd be curious to know, and you can get back to me on this, like how many of these transactions are actually European? Because I would say if you have, when I say European, I still include the UK for my British friends. I know you guys exited the European Union, but on a banking perspective and a payment processing perspective, it's all still bunched up in one region. So I'd be curious to know how many of your do not honors and transactions not allowed are European and British based, because it would explain a lot of them. And it's by law, by payment processing law. Yeah. I want to say law. It's not a law, like written law. It's just, it's a mandatory restriction now in Europe that you have to have 3DS. And if they don't care if you're not European, you can be, an Australian merchant selling to Europeans. You still have to do 3DS. They don't care that in your country, you don't have to. That's just the way it is. That's a big part of it for your do not honors and so forth, is your dynamic currency, your 3DS for European transactions, trying to inform your customers, that their transaction has been declined and so forth. Another thing that you can do that Stripe offers is for your US transactions, when you get it for a US IP, this is just kind of like a long shot, but Stripe offers ACH. And a lot of customers right now in the US are credit strapped. They're like up to here with their credit. And a lot of stores just accept credit card, whereas ACH is a very viable solution and a way that you can still do subscriptions. You can still, you can still collect your money just the same, and you'll pay like almost nothing. I think it's under 1%. Transaction fee. Wow. And there's a plugin that works with Stripe specifically that's called Plaid. And it works actually with most ACH platforms, Plaid, and it gets you same day settlement. It gets you the information right away if the bank account is good and you're able to collect, and it can do subscriptions. So it works very similarly to credit cards, and you literally just add it to your cart. What I have some merchants do is when a customer in the US declines, there's just like hey, do you want to pay by ACH instead? Yeah. It's not going to get everybody, but it gets people. It gets people, especially when you're looking at transactions under $100. You'll be surprised how many people are going to take that ACH option. Like, I've seen the take rate on an adult product, which, like, cringe. I can't believe people are paying for adult entertainment through their bank account. But it happens. And a very large adult client that I worked with has a 7% take rate. And I was, like, my eyes went like, what? Wow. Yeah. Wow. Like, how many people are paying for porn with ACH? I was like, I couldn't even believe it. Like, I set up the ACH account and I was like, I don't even believe this, So, I mean, you could tell I'm still impressed by this, but it was, so I can imagine that for a product like yours, that's, I saw a lot of ticket sizes that are $21, $7 and so forth. Why not? Right? It's not going to cost you anything. It's not going to be a huge integration for you. Stripe offers it, so you can quickly get that done, right? And then obviously there's so much more to unpack. I told you. See, I had guys, if you're listening, I had a talk with Areeba, and she was like, "Oh, it's just one question. It's my declines." Yeah. I'm like, no. You think that it's one question, but it's like a Pandora's box. Yeah. So, like, we can go on and on. I think this is an interesting amount of tips. And I would invite you to come back, and just at one point tell us, like, hey, I did this, or I added this, or here are my challenges with what I did. But I think these tips can literally get you probably an extra 5 to 10% tomorrow morning, so right. I would definitely suggest that you do it. And I'm not even just saying this for shits and giggles, as we say, but I'm saying this for real. I really would like to know how your results are. Because when we turn these on for our merchants, I like watch the numbers like a hawk because I'm always curious. And my personal experience, especially with the VAU, MAU, is 2 to 3%. Straight up. It takes a while for the VAU, MAU to work, meaning because people who are buying today, their card is not expiring usually today. So it takes 2 to 3 months before you start seeing that result because it's like an engine. So you have to make sure that you give it some time, right, to warm up. And it actually, what it may do, depending on your settings for VAU, MAU, I do want to add this. You may not have the vault turned on in Stripe. I think they do it by default. At one point they weren't, but I think now they are. So you have to have the Stripe vault turned on for VAU and MAU to work. So just keep that in mind. And if your transactions haven't been vaulted, they can't check them. So it only will be from the time you turn on the vault until stop.
That makes sense. This was very insightful. Yeah, thank you so much. I was just like, oh, just one question. It's just one question. But no, this is super, super helpful. There are like a bunch of things that we could just implement like right now, and we can see the results tomorrow. So this is great.
Yeah, awesome. And like I said, take me up on my offer. I want to see, I think we can unpack a lot more next time when you do these basic stuff, but these are basics that a lot of people don't think about. So I really thank you so much for sharing your experience. And I love doing episodes like this because I love finding people. I feel like it's free money. You know what I mean? Like just finding people money, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So thank you so much for your time, Areeba. You've been awesome. And you're so giving with your time and sharing all this information. I'm sure it's going to make a lot of people kind of open their eyes to a few things that they can be doing in their business.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you. Have a great day, Areeba. Thanks again.
You too.